So sometimes I tell students, if you go back to that kind of the flow chart of matter and you go down here into compounds, CPDs, compounds, sometimes I tell students you can actually branch off into two different types of compounds. And we have molecular CPDs, compounds, and then we have ionic compounds. So what I'm trying to say is, of course, over here we have elements. Okay, this is pure substances. Then over here we have mixtures. That's the thing I'm talking about. And then we have homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures. So my point here is compounds. Actually, there's two types of broad types of compounds. And I want you to kind of, we'll talk a little bit about those in this part 3 here. One of the things I want you to know, and I have a kind of a tally coming up here, but the molecular compounds we call, if you have isolated one piece of a molecular compound, we call that a molecule. For instance, we looked at formulas of compounds. If we isolate one unit of a molecular compound, we have a molecule. If we are able to isolate one repeating unit of an ionic compound, then we have a formula unit. So that's one thing I kind of want you to know, which doesn't sound very significant right now, I know. And then another thing I want you to know is that if you look in, now we talked about metals. Do you remember when we talked about metals and nonmetals? We said that if this is my periodic table, here's my 2 columns, those are A's, here's my B's, okay, here's my 6 columns of A's. We have a jag that kind of goes like this. Okay, that's not bad actually for me. That jag right here separates what the metals from the nonmetals, and these are nonmetals right here. Okay, so right off the bat, if somebody gives you the formula of a compound, you look in the formula of that compound, and if you see any metal, it kind of like contaminates it. If you see any metal, then that must be an ionic compound. If all the elements that are in that compound are all nonmetals, then it is a molecular compound. Now, you might be wondering, on my periodic tables, I actually have hydrogen associated with 1A, and I also have hydrogen over the halogens associated with 7A. So hydrogen, for purposes of identifying a compound as molecular or ionic, we consider a nonmetal. All right? But there are exceptions, and actually they're coming up. So let me see if I can pull up this. I put together, where did it go? I put together a little kind of flow tit for tat. This actually is column, you see there on the left, it's molecular compounds, and then on the right it's ionic compounds. So it kind of goes like this. One of the things I wanted to say right off the bat is molecular compounds and covalent compounds are synonyms for the same type of compounds. Let's see. So I'm just kind of summarizing what I said on the previous slide, but I like it kind of in this column format. So molecular compounds, the repeating unit is a molecule. Ionic compounds, the repeating unit is a formula unit. I think the word molecule is overused. And this is actually just to summarize, restate what I said on the previous slide too, that if in the formula it's all just nonmetals, okay, then you must have a molecular compound. If in the formula you have any metal at all, then that means you have an ionic compound. And hydrogen is considered a nonmetal. H is a nonmetal for purposes of this discussion. Let's see. And then just a little bit more about this. We'll be talking about these two different types of compounds where atoms are joined together in a repeating unit. For the molecular compounds, if you look at how all the atoms are joined together, all the what we call chemical bonds that are joining the atoms together, those chemical bonds are all covalent bonds. And we're going to talk more about this. Oh, it went away. We're going to talk more about this, but those chemical bonds, those covalent chemical bonds, are formed by the sharing of electrons. There we go. It's in black. Electrons are shared. Okay. Compared to your ionic compound where you have a metal, and if you have a metal, actually you are going to have an electron transferred. So hopefully this stuff in black and red we're going to be hitting more here in a minute. So I want to, this is where your video quiz is. So these are all compounds, and we have the formulas of the compounds are given. And for your video quiz, I want you to tell me which ones are, let's see, which way should we go? Which ones are covalent? Or sorry, which ones are molecular compounds? Molecular compounds, question mark. Okay, so answer this video quiz. Now, I'm going to tell you already that this one down here, ammonium sulfide, don't worry about it because actually that is an exception. So my hint is, and if you run into this on the test, molecular compounds, you are going to say all non-metals. Now you're going to have to use what we know about a periodic table and basically, to me, find all of these atoms on the periodic table, and if you see a metal, it is an ionic compound. If it's all non-metals, it's a molecular compound. Ready, set, go.